Hello, everyone. This is Sean from the Rap Geeks
What's up? It's
under
Aaron.
Playback Appeal.
Oh, hello. You know what it is. Playback, Rap Geeks. We are back. What we talking about today, brother?
Well, today we're talking about Big Boy and
Big
his
boy.
debut album. and his debut album, Sir
Stupid ass.
Luscious or Lucious Left Foot,
What do you
the
say? Do you say
son
Lucius or
of.
you say Luscious? That was the first one you went to.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to stick with Luscious. This is Big Boy's debut album, Sir Luscious Left Foot, the son of Chico Dusty,
Mm.
released 10 years from today, 10 years ago, July 5th, 2010, on Purple Ribbon Records, also Def Jam Records. So let's get into it. Big Boy, if you don't know, is one half of legendary hip hop duo Outkast out of Atlanta, Georgia.
ATL.
ATL. Outkast, man, that's a hard one to talk about because they're the hip hop group, in my opinion, that has never made a bad record. Every album that they've ever put out has always been so good. They're
We're
like the
talking
Radiohead of hip hop, bro.
we're talking together or individually? Cause we just heard a couple big boy joints and you know, I didn't really
Yeah.
like them like that.
Well, okay. Together, Andre 3000 and Big Boy make up Outkast. And in my opinion, Outkast, at least their last album, which I think was more of a soundtrack thing, wasn't as good. But man, I definitely grew up with ATLians and Speakerbox and Stankonia as some of those albums that you do listen to when you first start off with hip hop. Did you listen to Outkast starting off at all?
No, not starting off. I actually didn't even get to them until later. I mean, the only Outkast song I pretty much grew up with was the one that's
Hey
on
yeah,
every karaoke machine.
hey yeah, and
No,
Roses,
well, no. Before that,
Miss Jackson.
Miss Jackson. That one was on every karaoke machine.
Right, right. That's a Filipino thing, right? Growing up with karaoke machines.
Yeah, but
All
then hey,
right,
yeah, you know what I mean. That flooded everything.
right, right. So what makes this and what the reason why we wanted to talk about this album in particular 10 years after it's been released, why it's worthy of a playback appeal retrospect, is because Outkast is one of the most prolific hip hop groups of all time. And here's the funny thing. When people think of Outkast, even though it's a duo, it tends to be that people put a little bit more respect towards Andre 3000. In fact, I always felt that Big Boy kind of played the Robin to Andre 3000's Batman. And it was almost like Andre 3000 brought in that weird, spacey, creative, fantasy like persona. And then Big Boy was more of the grounded street rapper to complement that. Would you agree?
I would say after the first album, I believe that's when I really noticed the exactly what you were saying. I think in the first album, I still felt like they both were pretty much just rappers, you know? And then after that album, Andre became something none of us had ever imagined.
Right. And that first album, you're talking about Southern playalistic Cadillac
Yeah,
music,
that was all the traditional rap that we all are used to, you know?
like Players
And
Ball. Yep.
yeah, just that type of flow, you know, of the time. It was pretty standard to hear that type of rapping. And
Right.
then, you know, after that, it went south. No, no, south in a good way. You know what I mean? It went not in a bad way. I actually really like the direction he took it, just purely out of what is it, you know?
Right. Right. And so Outkast, when you really think about hip hop artists that kind of took hip hop to whole new levels, you definitely got to believe it that Outkast is one of those groups. And to date, it's really hard to even find groups to compare them to, just because
Yeah.
there's nothing like them in the Southern hip hop sense in terms of how they were able to move with every single album, how they were able to incorporate all these different psychedelic rock and metal and
Right.
funk and groove and new disco and all these different things into their music that just made them one of the most prolific hip hop bands of all time. But today's not about Outkast.
I was gonna say, when are we gonna get to Andre? Are you transitioning right now?
We're never gonna go into Andre because Andre is not part of
I
this.
mean,
Today
what did I say?
we're on the big boy.
Big boy.
Today we're on big boy. So
Big boy.
this is my hypothesis of this album.
Guan.
Sir Lucious Left Foot, the son of Chico Dusty. I think this album was a statement, man. It was a statement by Big Boy to show that he is not second fiddle, that he does have his own creative side. And this to me, out of all of the work I ever heard, out of the whole discography of Outkast and Big Boy, and I don't think Andre 3000 ever put out a solo album, but this is pretty experimental. In fact, I think that it even picks up where Stankonia left off, which is more towards the let's mess around with all different kinds of sounds and bombs over Baghdad and just do things that are a little bit more untraditional in the hip hop sense. So I think this is where it kind of picks up from that Outcast 10 years ago. I don't see it too much as the refined sound of Outkast like Speaker Box. I don't really see it like the Southern hip hop like ATLiens, Aqua Mini, or Southern playalistic Cadillac music. I think but this is different, man. This is definitely its own thing. And we're going to get into it on whether we think that this is something that we think you should listen to and our personal thoughts on it.
Let's get it.
All right, man. So, talking about this album and talking about Sir Lucious Left Foot, the son of Chico Dusty, one thing that stuck out to me is Big Boy can rap. Big Boy can definitely rap.
Facts.
And he can rap very fast. And he's definitely got the ability to go over any type of beat and flow over it. But that doesn't mean that I think Big Boy is ever going to be considered as one of the all-time greats. Where I think Big Boy shines is really the songwriting aspect, and that he was able to showcase that on this album of how versatile his songwriting really is.
I agree with that. Dude. And even when we were just listening, excuse me, when we were just watching that live performance he was doing of I forgot what song that was, but when they went a cappella and you can actually focus in on the lyrics, I heard it a lot differently. You know what I mean? I think of the song differently now since I heard him do it a cappella as opposed to hearing it with the production on it, and it was just another reminder that Big Boy can rap his ass off.
Right. And that song we were talking about was Daddy Fat Sax.
Yeah.
Which is one of the songs out of the multiple songs where he incorporates the talk box as part of the flow. And it's interesting that he's doing that, and he's getting that deep voice, that deep kind of Houston vibe as part of the beat, because around 3 years later, or maybe 2 years later, we see a guy like ASAP Rocky use the fuck out of that effect. Right. So, off the bat, I will say the album is a little sleepy. Not just because it features Sleepy Brown, but it doesn't grab my attention immediately as I'm going through the first 4 tracks.
I think that's just because you don't like the music. You know? Because it almost feels like this isn't... The album, to me, actually felt like a musical. Now, take that however you want. You know what I mean? Whether if musical is bad to you, then this album is gonna be bad to you. The first thing I thought of when I heard this album was Hamilton. And if you've ever watched Hamilton and you listen to the soundtrack for Hamilton, then I think you would also think of that if you heard this album. And the production and the quality, overall quality of the music is so good, but it feels like a completely different genre. And it's theatrical in its essence as a whole. I mean, he's
Mm,
telling the story of Sir Lucious Left Foot, and then just different scenarios that go on with a. I'm assuming he's painting a picture of a pimp player, and all the issues that he has to deal with. But I feel like the music is just it's not practical. It's not anything that we can go back to.
right. And especially when you have like a song like Follow Us with Vonnegut, it's a little cheeky. It's a
Cheeky.
little not it's almost as if they were trying to make something that
Mm,
would reach out to a larger audience instead of trying to just
hmm.
really focus in on what Big Boy was already good at.
Right. And
So
that's
it's
why
not go ahead.
That's why I was gonna say watching the music videos for some of those songs, it changed how I thought about the music. Like when I was listening to it in the context of, oh, okay, this music would sound great for a musical. But in the context of a music video, okay, this is a rap song. What is this? And so I categorize it as okay, this is a song. It's a rap song now, and I don't like it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the context for this music is really important. That's kind of one thing that I realized listening to the album because again, I do think these songs you could listen to over and over again just because the production quality is so high. But again, it's not. It just doesn't. I wouldn't go back to it as a rap listener.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that Big Boy was doing trying to accomplish two things at once
Mm,
with this album. On one hand, maybe three things. The first thing he's trying to do is showcase his own independent skill, which he kind of did on the Speaker Box album because
do
it
you
was a
think he was
split
trying to
album.
prove? You thought he was trying to prove himself?
Yeah,
Was the cloud, or how would you say, the cloud of Andre's talent really covering Big Boy's, hidden talent?
yeah. Because let's think about it. Think about this:
Mm.
Anderson Pack, Future. Are they going to Big Boy in order to do a feature, or are they going to Andre 3000? What about Frank Ocean? Is he going to Big Boy? No, he's going to Andre 3000.
Drake, good ass verse on at the end of Real Her on Take
Right,
Care.
right.
Mm.
So
We're
I
all
think,
waiting. It's a moment.
yeah,
Like
Kendrick
Andre.
Lamar, they're all
Mm,
going to the OG Andre 3000. I think
mm.
maybe the only guy to really go for a Big Boy is Run the Jewels. That would be a
Oh,
more
so you think
Big
the
Boy.
new? Sorry, go ahead.
No, man. I was just trying to emphasize that, and I don't want to spend too much time digging into this because I feel like when we talk about, you see, we're part of the problem, man. We keep on bringing Andre 3000 on a Big Boy interview, or a Big Boy retrospective. But okay, to get back into it, I think what he was trying to accomplish is number two. He was trying to market to an audience, and at that time in
Mm,
2010, you have a lot of experimentation going on in hip hop. So you have Drake, you have Wiz Khalifa, you have to an extent Childish Gambino,
Kid Cudi.
and and Kid Cudi, right? Huge influence on hip hop, by the way. Big Sean. So the hip hop wasn't really drill yet. It wasn't really gangster. It was still kind of in the wake of the Kanye West 808s and heartbreaks. Like, yo, we can be kind of emo. We can be kind of pop. We
Right.
can have music available for white kids too.
Yeah. It
And
was.
so I think he was trying to accomplish that as
Mm.
well.
Interesting. Because at the
But
time, as I think about it, the two labels that were really running shit around the time was Good Music, that whole
right,
camp, the good like maybe five of them, and then Young Money.
right.
They pretty much had the sound, and each of the individuals within those camps, pretty diverse. even within those camps, you had the pop star, and then second tier, third tier, and so on.
Right. And so where I think the album starts to really grab my attention a bit more is with the hit, number one hit of the album, Shutterbug. And Shutterbug is, I believe it's gotta be Big Boy's most successful song to date because it's got a super infectious glass breaking groove, kind of over this very glittery talk box, like bo 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 bo. And it's gonna get you dancing, man. It's gonna get you moving. And so that one's very catchy. Is it something that I play normally on my day to day to work? No, but it does the job, man. And I think he was trying to move some people. I think he was trying to get people to dance, and I think Outkast has always been about that.
They have. It was interesting that that particular song was even on the UK charts, and I was trying to understand. I wonder what the appeal was over there for that song.
Right, right. And once again, Big Boy is no stranger to experimentation. People think that Andre 3000 is always the experimental one, but let's not forget Big Boy made an album with Phanogram, and that's an indie rock thing. And I've seen Big Boy live with Phanogram. It's not my thing. It's not my thing, but I give him props for being able to be so diverse and eclectic in the type of music he wants to make. And the third thing that I think he was trying to accomplish with this album was showcase his creativity. And so I think that his own personal songwriting plays a big role in how the album was constructed. And a couple select tracks off of the album is him trying to show that he's still a badass motherfucker. And I think that song is probably one of my favorites that I'm going to get to is General Patton, where there is an operatic choir singing with piercing horns over trap cymbals, and he's going kind of back to his old school first two Outcast Southern flow.
Mm, hmm I mean, how can you not with those drums?
Right, man, right. And shout out to Big Boy, he's got a good taste for drums.
Yeah. There's a lot of southern man. I love how unapologetically southern this album was, in addition to what I had just mentioned earlier about it being musical and theatrical. Like the the rhythms in each of these songs bleed dirty south. You know, they bleed trap drums.
They do. But on the following track, things get a little bit more interesting. I think this is where Big Boy was. I don't think he's any stranger to rock music. I think for sure that dude was a fan of rock music. But particularly on the song Tangerine, he uses these alternative rock guitars with tom toms and then snap sounds on top of them. And he's featuring Ti and Cujo Goody from the Goody Mob, another Atlanta legend. And what I love is just the amount of representation of Atlanta he has on this whole thing, right? Like he's putting Ti, he's putting Goody Mob, he's putting Gucci Mane, he's putting B.O.B. And so this dude is like, we're gonna make this a pretty Atlanta heavy album, but we're not gonna make it gangster rap. And so what I come to realize around this point of the album is that there's a very playful quality to Atlanta rappers. And if you really think about it, Soldier Boy, B.O.B., Luda, Childish Gambino, Crisscross, they've all been kind of known to be a little charming with their music, a little playful. It's not so guttery like a New York or a Chicago, right? Even when I think of like a Young Thug album, even though he is in the more gangster scene, they're definitely willing to be a little bit more effeminate with their music, a little bit more chaotic with it.
Hmm. I don't even know what'd you say? Effeminate?
Effeminate. So what I mean by that is they're willing to showcase like a fuzziness to their album, to their music. You know, not just we're some street motherfuckers trying to kill and
Oh,
shoot
okay.
people. You
You
know, it's
saying
all
they
like,
soft? They're
no,
okay with being softer.
I'm definitely not saying that they're soft. I'm definitely not saying that they're soft. But I will say that they're just okay with being a little different, a little gay. You know
Right.
what I mean?
And do you think then, hey,
Little
let's bring
queer.
this train back to Andre? I mean, wasn't that what people were saying when his style started changing up?
Maybe, man. But we see this influence in guys like Childish Gambino, in guys like Chance the Rapper.
Who was the first suburban Atlanta rapper? Was it Gambino?
Yeah, it's not it goes expands beyond Atlanta. It gets to all of Georgia,
Oh well,
pretty much. I mean,
he
like
says
think
he's
of
from
Ray
the
Shremmerd,
six.
right?
He
Think of
said,
even like Ray Shremmerd or even Amigos. They're different, man. They're a little bit more playful in how they attack the beat.
huh, yeah, playful, yeah, for sure. Migos now, especially, they're funny. Like
Right.
their chemistry on the track, and even on they had a Tim Westwood freestyle. I don't know if we watched that together, but
Hilarious.
yeah, their chemistry freestyling is so good.
Right, right. You got any more to say about that particular track, or you want to go on to the next song? I like You Ain't No DJ.
I don't have any comments on that one. I didn't even.
Really?
It's a good song, but not too many songs that I have actual specific comments on. So what you got to say about this one?
Well, it features Yellow Wolf,
Right. I mean,
and
look, that hey,
it,
I like that. Love that.
right, but it features Yellow Wolf right when he was around the era of coming out with Trunk Music, which is kind of like
Was
the
that
album
same
that put
time
him on.
frame?
Same time
2010?
frame, like
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And another thing is he and on top of that, he was working with Janelle Monáe too, right around
Yeah,
like
early.
the early. So this guy was really trying to put on Southern rappers who were doing things a little bit differently. But Yellow Wolf kills it, man. You got to give it to Yellow Wolf. Does a really good job, really hard, and the beat to me sounds like a Run the Jewels type beat.
You know, I thought about Killer Mike a lot listening to this album. I thought about Run the Jewels too. Um, and you could you say because you're a Run the Jewels, pretty big fan. Listen to all their albums. And so like, would you say that a lot of songs on here in the rapping style reminds you of a couple songs on any Run the Jewels albums?
Not any songs in particular. I do think that, I mean, first of all, Killer Mike's also from Atlanta, right? So there's that correlation.
Right.
But when it comes to particularly how do they remind me of anything? No, but I could definitely imagine Killer Mike on a couple of these tracks for sure.
Right. Maybe I'm equating the energy of the music. Just it's all upbeat. It's it's loud and there are some orchestral,
It's very
instrumentation.
uplifting. It's very high energy. Yeah,
Yeah, high
it's
energy.
fast at sometimes.
Yeah, and the drums and everything, all of that. I think about the type of energy that Killer Mike comes with on Run to Jules projects.
Yep, yep. And so another interesting feature they have is Jamie Foxx on the track "Hustle Blood," and not the biggest fan of the track at all. I think it's kind of cheesy. And I like Jamie Foxx. I think he's very talented, one of the most talented men in the industry today. But yeah, filler.
Filler, huh? Well, you know what? See, here's the thing. It's like I can't stress this enough. When you frame the album as a musical, every song makes sense. But when you're judging it on a rap album standard, it it ruins the album. That's how I see it,
Right,
man.
right. It's akin to more of a Hamilton, as you said.
Right.
Okay, yeah. This is even though you call it a musical, this will be my counter argument.
Mm.
It's not a concept album. Don't get that twisted. It's not like a concept album is something that I think started to happen more and more with the release of Good Kid, Mad City, and then we saw YG start to do this, and I see more and more rappers coming out with concept album, which is to make the whole album flow very well, very to play the tracks from they want you to play the tracks from start to ending. This is not that album. The cuts between each track are very abrupt.
Yeah, I track to track, there's no real transition.
Zero.
There would just have to be some dialogue, i.e., this is a musical.
Right. And there's a couple short skits like at the end or
Yeah.
beginning of the songs, but nothing that really sticks out. And you know what's another thing that's really funny? And I can understand where you come up with the concept of the musical. Like I was watching some music videos. One of them was the one with Janelle Monáe, the Be Still track. Man, these music videos are incredibly low budget music videos. I think it's on purpose. Like I think it's on purpose just to
Did he drop this
I don't know.
independently?
No, it's under Def Jam.
Oh,
So
damn, they gave him no budget.
and I knew for a fact 2010 Big Boy probably made some money. So that dude was either cheap or he was just on some shit. He was trying to make as many music videos as possible. You know, MTV still kind of had a little bit of a presence, but this track, in my opinion, I love Janelle Monáe, but it's cheesy songwriting and it's an overdrawn chorus, not that much Big Boy action. But once again, I say this over and over again. Big props to Big Boy for being audacious enough to make the song.
But we like big boy action.
We like that Big Boy action for sure.
Again, yeah, the songs are good, but like you said, there's some cheesy parts, and I can't do nothing but attribute it to the fact that we can't call this a rap album. I don't feel comfy, but maybe that wasn't the intention. That was not the intention.
Right. But I had a feeling you like the next one, the next track.
We talking For Your
Sorrows,
yeah.
with George Clinton from Parliament and Too Short and Sam Chris. The reason I think you like it is because it starts off with the Bay Area bounce.
Yeah, and I mean I think they did that specifically to have Too Short on it. And I think naturally
for 10 seconds.
Hearing his voice with some kind of wow, 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 some type of bounce with a bass line, then it just brings you back to old Too Short, songs. And so that was probably, I'd say that's my top one song.
Yeah.
That's my top, man.
Top one.
You know me too well.
It's got a funny George Clinton in the music video.
And they have a video for that too? Wow.
They have a video for, I think maybe half the album has a music video. So they start off with the Bay Area bounce, and then it moves to a double time, and then it lows back down, and that bounce is only there for maybe the first 10 seconds, and then you got George Clinton kind of singing and, kind of acting a fool, and it's not one of my favorites.
Right. I mean, well, see, that song in particular, maybe, and so Big Boy, like many other rappers at this time, maybe he's probably one of the later ones, but had some kind of like pimp transition. People like Snoop did that. Right. Big Boy had a pimp, he
had a pimp look for sure. That big fuzzy fur coat jackets he would walk around like
that's what they were going for. And this song, I mean, is a straight up head nod to all things pimp. You know what I mean? Just with Clinton being in there, with the whole P Funk and obviously P being pimp. And then having Too Short, obviously, and then Sir Lucious Left Foot. I mean, this whole story is about a pimp. So this song was probably one of the only pimp nods to that culture.
Right, not like their first album, which probably was a bigger nod to the
Players Club type shit.
So the next track is interesting. It's called Night Night with a guy that you and me like to trash a little bit, B.O.B. Enjoy.
I was about to say.
Dude, the beat is like a progressive house beat, like almost as if Deadmau5 produced it, but then they just add a drum set on it. But interesting thing is towards the end of the song, there's this like bass guitar slapping. And I was thinking the whole time they could have incorporated that earlier because it was good. And And the interesting thing about Big Boy is, and maybe Outkast as a whole, is how much they love to incorporate the bass guitar, the slap of the
Yeah.
bass.
I think there's just something super southern about it. Just maybe it has something to do with the type of blues that they grew up listening to. Maybe.
Could be, man.
Theory. B.O.B. though, I didn't even notice that was him. Honestly, I listened to the song twice and a half just to be like, where is B.O.B.?
Hmm.
Apparently he was on the chorus.
Right. My favorite feature on the whole album is Gucci Mane on the song Shine Blackas. One, they're sampling Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, the song I Miss You. Harold Melvin, man, they get sampled quite heavily in hip hop music. Something I've been kind of realizing as we're doing more of these retrospectives. Funny thing about this music, about this song, is once how incredibly low budget the music video is. I believe Gucci Mane was in the pen at this time, so they were just showing stock images of Gucci Mane every
No,
time his verse came up. And
don't.
I'm like, bro, this is like the modern Doja Cat aesthetic where you just put a green screen and just put like a stock image.
But Bitch I'm a Cow was so much better.
Yeah, I mean but that was intentionally for marketing purpose. But nice dance between the xylophone and the bass guitar. You know, there's a heavy use of the bass guitar. I love the Gucci Mane feature just because it's so nice to hear a gangster ass rapper like Gucci Mane on some
Scoochie.
very uplifting beats.
Yeah, that's number 2 for me on this album. Number 2.
Right.
There's something about that type of sample that the South does well, where they have some type of and then they just loop it and then throw trap drums on it. I mean, they got that on International Players Club, and I'm sure there are countless others that I cannot think of. But that Motown, Philadelphia soul big band type of music. Those samples go well over any type of Southern rapper beats.
Right, right. The album goes into The Train Part 2, and this song is called Sir Lucious Left Foot Saves the Day with another, Sam Chris. This is when I realized that Big Boy came into this with no formula, just free flow creativity. The track, as it ends, it goes into this salsa dancing type thing.
Mm.
There's a real lack of consistency in any of the transitioning of the album. But once again, a very illustrious choice of instruments that really transcend hip hop. It's got more of a feel of the way an indie rock album would be created. Reflecting back on the album as a whole, I know this album had very high accolades. I don't know if it's because the majority of people that write reviews are white folks, but it's a little too pop funk for my personal taste, man. I can see the influence on the likes of Chance the Rapper, Childish Gambino, especially on King Kunta by Kendrick Lamar, especially with the bass guitar and the funk. But no playback appeal for me.
Right, right. Again, I think for anybody to go back to listen to these songs, you just can't look at it as a rap album. No, nobody is going to be going to this music for that. Now, if you got a bunch of people and they're playing characters and they're singing these songs together and they're doing a musical about it, then yes, I might go back to some of these songs. I mean, probably the only song I might go back to, maybe For Your Sorrows, but that's it. Because it's
Right.
familiar. It's familiar. But it is what did you say earlier? It's not experimental. This isn't anything really new, but it's definitely something that most people would consider maybe outside of the box for somebody like Big Boy. But it's not too far from Idlewild, what they did in Idlewild, which came out probably 2.5 years before this album, which was the last joint album that we saw for the most part from Outkast.
Yeah.
And so it's not too far from that, and it might have been inspired from it. My first listen was like, oh, was he doing a second Idlewild type of joint? And then my second listen to it, it just made sense to me that okay, maybe the intention wasn't let me do purely a rap album. Just do some maybe add some flavor to what they did in Idlewild. Maybe. I have no clue. Really couldn't tell what his intention was coming into making his first solo album.
Yeah, the song, his sound. I believe this is. I don't know if this is his most commercially successful album, but his albums do well. His albums do well, and especially on the next album he comes out with, which is called Vicious Lies and Dangerous Rumors. The dude has an all-star cast of features. I mean, Kid Cudi, Little Dragon, Killer Mike, Kelly
He
Rowland,
got a little
ASAP
dragon.
Rocky, B.O.B., UGK, Big Crit,
Well, what does that
Affilius London,
what does that say?
Raves.
What does that mean to you?
Dude, the guy is so big that he can sell an album just based off the features, man.
Yeah, but most you say like it's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
I
Because I'm
think
gonna listen to those albums just because he
because of
has
those
those
cats.
features.
Yeah, but I think a general hip hop listener would critique an album based on okay, so you got all these features because what you can't do shit, you can't do this on your own. Like you're kind of utilizing the fame that these other artists have to kind of add to your album. That's kind of the what I think is what most people would kind of go to, or at least the hypercritical '90s rap listener would kind of go to that when they critique an album. Like, yo, look at all these features. But on this particular album, the features aren't from famous people. Like, there's not a lot of famous people, and like you kind of mentioned earlier, they got these people early. Like, I don't even think Yellow Wolf had his BET cipher yet.
Mm.
You know, don't quote me on that, but even after his first BT cipher, you know what I mean. That's what I think might have been Yellow Wolf's kind of big breakout with Slaughterhouse. Um,
Right.
but yeah, he none of these people are famous at that point. B.O.B. kind of just dropped "Beautiful Girls" with Bruno Mars that year too, so he's kind of blowing up. That's probably the highest profile rapper next to damn Too Short. Um, but yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, man, I think, and once again, we recognize that a lot of people like this album. We get it. But us as the Rap Geeks, we don't put our stamp of approval on it. And it might be because we're so used to Outkast. And the element that Andre 3000 brings to the table is deep.
Yeah, I
He's a
like
deep
that.
man.
I like that
He,
balance between the two.
right? And Big Boy's not. Big Boy's very over the top. He's very, but Andre 3000 gives definition to Outkast's music, and Big Boy is the yin to the yang. And so when you only got the yang, it's just a funky party record with some hip hop trimmings. But
Yeah.
he's a very good rapper. We're not saying that he's not. But the depth is lacking. I love Big Boy on Outkast. This does not get my playback appeal stamp of approval. That's what I gotta say.
And I'm gonna agree with you, but again, we gotta listen to the album because you'll recognize how highly produced this music is. And again, in the context of a rap album, it's hard to listen to. But I do say, actually, let me ask you, who do you think this album is for then?
I think it's for the general masses.
General masses, as in people who turn on the radio and leave it.
Well,
Is that the
I don't know,
masses
man.
anymore? What's the
It's
new
almost like
masses?
asking. It's almost like asking who does Linkin Park make music for? Because Linkin Park doesn't make music for metalheads. They don't make music for hip hop heads. They don't make music for alternative rock heads or EDM heads. They just kind of make music that is people who kind of like a little bit of everything. And that's how I felt that he was coming out with this. That's why I kind of compared it to,
Right.
the Stankonia album,
Hmm.
because I think that album in particular was kind of the album that Outkast made that was like, we're gonna make a little bit of everything. And so that's where I think that this comes in. It doesn't help that the album cover is just kind of it's nothing great, so
I think it's appropriate at the times.
yeah, it could be appropriate at times. It looks like a shittier Teflon
Yeah.
Don
I
by
was
Rick Ross.
I had to really go back and listen to what songs were popping at the time. Like I caught my ass listening to like Bedrock earlier just to really put myself back in the 2010 space and then listen to this album just to see, am I tripping or is this album just sound super aged? You know?
It has not held up well. Let's just say that. It
Right.
has not held up well. I think there's still an audience that messes with it, and if there wasn't, we wouldn't be doing this. So, point is,
Right, right. And I mean, Big Boy's legend, man. We got to talk about this one. Even though I do think 25% of it was about Andre, which is cool. I mean, that's fine. We'll give Dre 25% of Big Boy album review.
right. Well, that concludes it for me. What about you?
That's it, man. Wouldn't go back to it personally. If maybe if I'm driving with you, just to kind of piss you off with some of these songs, maybe, or we could slap General Patton like heavy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
If we can add some ridiculous 808s to General Patton, like
Yeah, but I would much rather
it'd be
hear.
dope.
I would much rather hear this album live. That's really kind of my point. Is just this is great live music, but not anything I would kind of download offline on my Spotify.
Yeah, and you know what? I wish there was an Andre 3000 feature on the album. That would have made it way better for me.
Oh, you think that was on purpose?
Maybe, man. Who knows?
Who knows? Couldn't afford him.
Anyways, thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Rap Geeks.
Thank y'all.
You have been we appreciate you. We
We-
appreciate anyone who listens to our podcast.
Yeah,
Once again,
from the heart.
we're always reviewing old music. 'Cause
Oh
we're
shit.
old hip hop heads. We're not new hip hop heads. We don't be messing around with no Polo G, no NBA YoungBoy,
okay.
no NLE Choppa.
You sure you want to keep this in? Oh my god, I don't want no smoke from him. I mean, I don't listen to him. I don't want no smoke.
Hey man, we appreciate all the smoke.
We want all the smoke, y'all.
Anyways,
Thank you.
what you can do is you can leave us a review. I don't know where you get your podcast from. YouTube, Spotify, Apple. You can find us at all of these locations. And if there's any particular album you want to hear us do a decade of review, you can always email us at playbackappeal@gmail.com too. We're signing out. Sayonara.
Playback. 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 Yeah.